Praise the Lord, saints. This is Elder Adrian Heyman. And of course, I got time to think because I'm retired and I watch over my wife. So where else would I be? But it does give me time to think of a lot of things. I just happened to run across an article, and this is a Facebook article that I'm actually glad that one of my minister friends, Soup Campbell, posted this. And I thought it was pretty interesting. And it dealt with a UN resolution brought up by Ghana. And this resolution was to present the transatlantic slave trade as the biggest crime against humanity and something that would be worthy of reparations. And when I heard of the results, first I was a bit surprised, but then started thinking, not really. Because every country acts in its own self-interest. And the country is really just a reflection of people. Most of us, we act in our own self-interest. It's nothing to be mad about or to scream about. Of course, if it's something that's going to hurt other people, then yeah, that's something different. But for a person to act in their own interests is, well, normal. Why would I expect someone not to act in their own interests unless they're truly sacrificing for a higher cause? And how many times does that happen? Hate to be so down against mankind, but again, the idea is to deal with what does man usually do? And he acts within his own self-interest, which is a variant of self-survival. An animal acts in the best interest of his or her survival. Unless it's a mother, like a mother bear or mother cougar or whatever, who then would attack an enemy, even if it's at the expense of their own lives. But then even then, it's to propagate the species. If mama dies, but the kids live, well, you got the kids to carry on. But if the kids live, but if mama lives and the kids die, then you don't know whenever you have another chance to procreate, and therefore there could be the extinction of your species. So that's built in. But getting back to what my minister friend had posted, it was said that essentially that a majority of the nations supported this resolution to name the transatlantic slave trade as one of the worst atrocities of mankind and worthy of reparations. Now, I'm not sure what the reparations would be for, if it would be towards the descendants of the slave trade, which would mean usually those in the United States, in the Latin American countries, and so on. Or would it be for those who had lost relatives? That would be, of course, the African nations like Ghana, Nigeria, and so on. But that didn't interest me as much as those who either voted against it or abstained. So there was 3 countries who voted against it. And I'm sure you can guess which ones. United States is one of them. Let me go deal with the United States. You would think the reason why the United States would be against this is because it would put the United States on the hook to pay reparations. And if we haven't received reparations by this time, it's with each passing generation, that chance gets less and less and less. Not that I wouldn't want it, but I'm not going to stake my life on getting any. So I live my life not trying to expect it. You may say, well, Elder Hamer, aren't you being fatalistic about this? Shouldn't we push for it? Oh, we can push for it. And maybe we'll actually get some. But with each passing year and each passing generation, those from whom we would get the reparations from, whether it's an individual person who's a descendant or whether it's the U.S. government, would feel as if there's quite a hefty price tag that we're not ready to pay. And I'm not sure if we'll ever be ready to pay. To be honest, with the difficulty it is in trying to correct various wrongs in this country by using things like DEI and so on, then and if that's been taken away, then why would we think that we're going to receive reparations? Again, I'm not saying whether reparations aren't called for. I'm just being real in terms of whether it will actually happen. And possibly that's a significant reason why it's going to be pretty difficult to have certain policies or have certain people reelected to certain offices. I think the election of Barack Obama as president, so far to me, is a one-off. It's novelty. Everything kind of came together at one time. He was able to be elected. I'm not too sure if it's going to happen again in our near future. Would I like it to happen? Of course I do. Will it happen? That's a much bigger doubt. Again, this has nothing to do with my position on these items. It is just looking at history and looking at essentially what has been happening. And again, the longer things pass, the harder it will get for reparations to be awarded. And I could be mad at it. I can be furious at it. I can just go ballistic over it. But why? Not that we don't deserve it, but the question is, will we get it? why not put my energies into something that's going to be a bit more realistic, at least in this current political environment or national environment, whatever we want to call it. But that's just the U.S. The other country, well, they said 3 countries. They didn't really name the third country, but another country is Israel. And you may figure, well, yeah, it's because they're racist. Not necessarily. The main thing about Israel and about the Jewish experience as a whole is that the one event around which, at least in modern history, around which everything else, almost everything else seems to revolve around, is the Holocaust. And even though many different people died in the Holocaust, many people were slaughtered because of who they were. But it was the Jews who were destined at that particular time for annihilation. At least as far as the Nazis were concerned. And it's funny that the Jews were thought of to be even more evil and worthy of death than even black folks. We were just thought of to be just plain stupid, which is, in its own way, it's dehumanizing and it's horrible to think about. But at least we weren't thought of as inherently evil, as the Jews were. And it wasn't just the Germans that thought this. Many people around the world, even in this country, thought the Jews were inherently, or are. Some people still think the Jews are inherently evil. That they've taken over industries, taken over financial systems, and therefore they need to be checked. And so because of their position, I can actually understand why Israel would vote against this resolution. Because it's not that they would have to pay reparations, because in the most part, those that subjected Africans to slavery also were ones who essentially didn't want to deal with Jews either. You have to understand, Jews were not wanted in Europe. And when they came to America, the same people that came from Europe had the same ideas about Jews. Am I being sympathetic towards Jews? Again, this is just strictly by observation. See, one thing you have to understand is that whether you agree with something or not, the more you understand why things happen, the more you're able to fix the situation, so to speak. But you have to be able to fix the situation by understanding what's taking place and why it takes place. People that say, well, I just don't understand, I just can't, then that's why you're going to be behind the 8 ball. Try to understand. Does that mean you accept it? It just means you have an idea why things happen the way they do. And then find the best way to fix the situation. So, even though one may not agree with what the United States and Israel's position on this particular subject about the transatlantic slave trade being the worst war crime that's happened, and then to pay reparations for it. I mean, I may not agree with what the United States and Israel voted, but you have to try to understand why. Then from there you can judge. Is this worth it to go after this or not? As far as Israel, again, they don't have much to do with reparations, but it could be because of their own positions. Now, there were many who abstained, and those who abstained were mostly European nations. Now, why would they do that? Of course, because they had been involved in the slave trade themselves, but they stopped their participation in the slave trade before the Americans did. So, whereas they felt, whereas they actually started this through colonialization and their continued activities in that area. See, they didn't need slaves anymore when they got the mother country to then go and mine all the materials and take those out without giving anything to the natives of the land. So again, I can see why they would abstain from that. On one side, they have the United States, which is essentially arguably the most powerful country in the world, and the United States are against that. But on the other hand, you have the African nations who had been suffering from exploitation by the European countries. Because as much as when people may want to feel as though, well, if the European countries weren't there, then you would still be in mud huts. That's a pretty ignorant thing to say, because not everyone was in mud huts. And one could also say, well, if y'all didn't go and try to deal with Rome, then y'all would have still been the Germanic tribes. Well, there's different things in history that causes things to happen. Doesn't make it right or wrong. That just causes the things to happen. The thing that I want to get from all this is very simple. And that is this. Regardless of where you fall on this subject, it needs to be discussed. It needs to be part of the curriculum in schools. It cannot be whitewashed. It can't be ignored. It must be discussed so that at some time in the future, a reasonable answer can be given and no more excuses made. It wasn't me. It was my parents, like the Israel used to do. And God called them on it. That our fathers ate sour grapes and our teeth are set on edge, which means that it was the fathers who were the ones who committed all the wrongs, but we're the ones being punished for it. So it doesn't seem as though, essentially, the same, history tells us the same thing happens over and over and over and over again. But this time, what we need to do is learn from it. This may fall on deaf ears, I'm sure many people have their own reasons. But we have to find a solution for this. Because to me, it's not just our country that needs to understand this, but it's our world. One can be fatalistic and say, well, Lord's going to come anyway, and so why will we worry about it? Because as long as we're in this world, we might as well work that the world, as long as we're here, is a better place. Because once we're gone, who knows what's going to happen to this world except God? And the prophecies that have been written don't look very good. So let's get it straight right now. Whatever solutions we can come up with, let's stop excusing what takes place. Let's find the reasons why countries are refusing to accept the horrific implications of the transatlantic slave trade, and then go from there. Just to think. God bless you. Take care of yourselves. May you have a blessed day. In Jesus' name.